Aquariums or the prison life. People say that aquariums are healthy for fish, but I highly disagree. You must have heard people despair the proverbial living life in a goldfish bowl. Do you think it is more fun for an actual fish than it would be for you? Fish are delicate creatures. Capturing and transplanting them from their natural environs to small sterile tanks. To indulge the passing fancy of a child is not only cruel but environmentally destructive of our marine ecology. Millions of tropical fish die in the process. The ones which survive the shift from sea glass cage live out unnaturally short and highly stressed lives. They swim up and down the confines of this cage until they die in a few weeks. People say that aquariums successfully imitate the fish's natural surroundings. Not so, because by merely putting water, ferns, plastic flowers, and silly showpieces like frogs that open and close their mouths in the bowl, do you think you are duplicating a fish's natural environment? An aquarium has no similarity to aquatic life. In nature, the water conditions are constantly being affected by the elements, the rain, the sun, wind, and water flow. In an aquarium, the water is static. And in any case, the water comes from your tap and it contains chlorine, which is extremely harmful to the fish. Its pH balance and the temperature level in no way resembles what the fish is used to. The harsh artificial lighting that allows you to see into the aquarium and allows photosynthesis of the ferns you put in cannot fake natural illumination, nor does it allow the fish the dark the rest periods they need. Do you think that providing a rock in the aquarium is enough to really make a dark corner for the fish to take refuge? Dry processed shop food, though it may contain the necessary nutrients, can never duplicate the taste and variety of marine life that fish have natural access to. Fish need space to swim and to grow. In the wild, they live in large social groups and range over wide areas, but in an aquarium, they swim in a small confined area over the same topographical features every day. No, an aquarium is just a cage for fish, and to believe otherwise is pretty much foolish. People say fish remain healthy and happy in an aquarium. Really? How many times have I heard people tell me that their fish keep dying in their home fish tanks? It's not the fish's fault, it's yours. You take this wild creature from its natural home and shove it into an unsuitable condition with not a clue about its hygiene and health care. Most fish keepers know nothing about the maintenance of an aquarium. The pity is that the fish pay for your ignorance with his life. Firstly, there is overcrowding. Fish are filled to the maximum tank capacity, killing them all. Often they are incorrectly mixed, and carnivores share the tank with smaller, more vulnerable species. Most buyers buy for matching their fish to their home decor rather than their ability to coexist. Another cause of death is incorrect or irregular cleaning. Fish waste products. Fish waste produces ammonia, which breaks down into nitrite, which is extremely poisonous. Chlorine from taps, chemicals from aerosols and cigarette smoke infect and pollute the water. Furthermore, fish are extremely shock prone in a sudden blaze of light or darkness. When the lights are operated, really upsets them. Other stress-inducing factors are people tapping on the glass to attract their attention, fluctuating water temperatures, etc. Aquarium books tell us that fish should be fed 2 or 3 times a day with small helpings. Actually, we don't know how they eat in the wild at all. However, Since fish rush to the surface of the tank every time you scatter food, and it is the only interaction you have with them, people feed them much more frequently, especially when they want to impress guests. With nothing to do, the fish concentrate only on eating and overfeeding, which is a sign of stress and which ultimately kills them. Then again, how many times do you simply forget to feed them? Aquarium fish live in an unnatural state of fear and stress, dependent for their lives on your mood and your memory. People say aquariums serve an educational purpose. How many of us have learned anything about fish from an aquarium? How many of us learned anything useful from a zoo that we could not have learned from a book? More than that, how many of us have learned about the value of life from an aquarium? We just learned a few names like swordtail, angelfish, guppy, molly to show off to our new friends. Have we learned the magic of how fish live with each other, how they breed, their likes and their dislikes, their fears, their vulnerabilities, their strength, how they affect our lives, how they keep the waters of the oceans and rivers clean for us, how beautifully they swim and bursts of color in the sea, how they feed their children, far from teaching. An aquarium actually makes us insensitive to the wonders of life. Fish are not educational toys, and aquaria gives us all false notions of how fish live. People say, why would aquariums affect conservation? All these fish that are sold as aquarium fish are colorful coral reef fish. Wild populations of tropical fish have become severely depleted. Whole coral reefs are dying because the fish that live among them and interact with them have disappeared, caught for your drawing rooms. Over 2 million people have aquaria, so it's an extremely profitable trade, and shops that sell these fish will tell you any lies to encourage you to buy it. One of the biggest lies is that fish are bred by them. Fish rarely breed in captivity. In the wild, they have their breeding seasons according to natural stimuli like heavy rain, which swells and cools the rivers and increases the oxygen content and washes an abundance of insects into the water so that there is enough to eat. No pet shop can do that in their aquarium. So no breeding. About 80% of them die during capture and transit. Not only do you buy them, but they are going to countries which have unsuitable climates where they die even faster. If a country loses its coral reefs, then its shores get washed away. In return for your aquarium, do you want to lose chunks of our country's land as well? All you are doing is keeping poachers in business. It's as bad as taking wild birds, and fish are wild water creatures. They are not and never will become pets. People say, but aquarium fish are amusing. Rubbish. You have no interaction with them. They do not recognize you. They do not care about you. They do no tricks. They make no sounds. They have no particular sharp intelligence. They cannot be trained. You can't even eat them. So why be so mean to them? Tanks of tropical fish in waiting rooms, lobbies, and airports are obscene, and I suggest you should take up the issue whenever you see them. If you have an aquarium, look after the fish properly, and when the fish die, don't get any more. Better still, return the fish to the seller and plant indoor plants in an empty tank and make an indoor garden instead of a glass prison. People literally will take time out of their day to go to an aquarium so that they can see these fish swim around back and forth, and they have no regards to the fish's life whatsoever. Do you see how crowded, how overcrowded these tanks are? When one or two fish die off, what's going to happen? They're going to be replaced by another fish. These people that handle these fish don't even care. They don't even care to even understand that these fish should remain where they are, instead of taking them from their home and placing them inside of a damn prison so that people can come and look at them in amusement. It's not fair to the fish. Fish have lives too. And it's sad that they are imprisoned, probably abused, and swimming back and forth with nothing else to do. That stresses them out. You can actually see how upset these fish look. They look sad. They look confused. They look like they're in prison. Let's think of these poor little fish like Black Americans. Black Americans are much more likely to be incarcerated. Mass incarceration is predominantly Black incarceration. Black people are nearly 6 times as likely to be incarcerated as white people, and nearly 3 times as likely to be incarcerated as their Latino counterparts. Why? A review of the research by the Sentencing Project concluded that higher crime rates in Black communities explained about 61 to 80% of Black overrepresentation in prisons. This means that other factors such as racial bias or past criminal records influencing prison sentences were behind as much as 39% of the desperate rates of imprisonment for Black people. Black Americans are disproportionately arrested for drugs. Black people are much more likely to be arrested for drugs, even though they're not more likely to use or sell them. Black defendants generally receive longer sentences than white counterparts for the same crime, as this has been consistently true for drug trafficking, and a 2012 report from the U.S. Sentencing Commission found it to be true for other types of crimes as well. Most states don't let people in prison, on parole, or on probation vote, and 10 limit at least some felons from voting after they've completed their sentences, according to the American Civil Liberties Union. As a result, more than 6.1 million Americans won't be legally allowed to vote due to their criminal records in 2016. Several states prohibited 5 to 11% of their electorate from voting, and since Black Americans are likelier to go to prison, this had a disproportionate impact on the African American electorate, leaving more than 20% of Black voters in Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia legally banned from voting. This is one of the various collateral effects of prison. Other examples include restrictions on employment and bans on receiving welfare benefits, accessing public housing, or qualifying for student loans for higher education. A lot of mainstream media attention goes to the federal prison system and war on drugs, but most people in prison are held at the state level, and they're usually in for violent offenses. This poses a very tricky situation for U.S. policymakers. If they want to undo mass incarceration, they're going to have to cut back on a number of violent offenders in prison, but lawmakers have to figure out how to do that without endangering public safety. Unlike the much larger state prison system, about half of federal prisoners are incarcerated for drug crimes. For federal lawmakers, this means much of the work of reducing the incarcerated population falls on cutting sentences for nonviolent drug offenses. But since the federal system is a relatively small part of the national system, those reforms would have a small impact on incarceration overall. It's easy to look back with scorn at the tough on crime policies that fed mass incarceration. How could politicians really think that locking up millions of Americans would be a great idea? America's murder and non-negligent manslaughter rate was historically very high, along with all violent and property crimes. As horror stories of gun violence and gang wars permeated the news, the public demanded that U.S. leaders do something, leading to the tough on crime policies that are still with us today. The harm suffered by fishes used for display are not limited to suffering and death during capture and translocation. The standard conditions that fishes endure in the tanks where they live are also quite harmful. Many fishes are chosen for breeding according to the way they look, behave, or serve other human purposes, even if this means that they are likely to suffer from congenital issues. Tanks and pools often have water temperatures that are too cold or too warm for their inhabitants. This does not promote good health or comfort, and it can also cause significant suffering and lead to premature death. There is a difference between the temperature levels at which animals can survive and the one at which they can feel comfortable. And although ignorance about water temperature settings may be part of the reason for incorrect settings, other factors such as saving money or putting incompatible fish in the same tank also contribute to the problem. Poor water quality is probably the most common cause of death in fishes who are used as ornaments for display. It often occurs with people who have fish tanks at home and don't know a lot about the needs of the animals, such as their need for water that is adequately oxygenated and filtered. The wrong diets are often fed to animals kept by people who don't know about their nutritional requirements. And even when fishes living without proper nutrition aren't killed by it, a deficiency in diet can be a cause of considerable chronic or acute suffering. In order to feel safe and comfortable, some fishes need to have certain elements around them, such as rocks, corals, and algae, or things that can function similarly, especially when they are being kept in an aquarium with other incompatible animals from whom they would like to hide. Fishes living in crowded conditions may suffer from acute stress, as can be evidenced by their raised cortisol levels. They can also have depressed immunity and become more susceptible to other damaging effects of stress. Aggression among crowded fishes may cause injury, especially in situations where there is strong competition for food, as has been observed in fishes living in fish farms. In such situations, fishes can be prevented from eating, can grow poorly, and can become more susceptible to disease. Another source of stress to fishes involves the social environment and applies both to those who live in schools and those that do not. Social contact, or the lack thereof, depending upon the animal's natural tendencies, can cause suffering and poor health. It has been estimated that in up to 19% of ornamental tanks, predator and prey were kept together. Even brief exposure to a predator causes signs of severe stress, such as increased cortisol levels, increased respiration rates, and suppressed feeding. Dyeing fishes with color has become a common practice among those who display fishes. Glass fishes in particular are injected with fluorescent dyes. This can be harmful to their health, leading in many cases to disease, often ending in premature death of the animals. Sometimes fishes are inflicted with piercings or tattoos for financial or aesthetic reasons and are caused great suffering by the mutilations. So imagine that you're enjoying life with your family and friends until one day someone comes and takes you away from them. Your captors keep you jailed inside a glass box and give you food that you're not used to eating. The air in the box is different than the air you're used to breathing at home, and it makes you sick. Groups of people pass by and stare at you through the glass every day for years on end, but no one ever helps you escape. The aquatic life, they tear families apart. Aquariums don't benefit animals. Animals actually suffer. Interactive programs are cruel. They're not educational. They're poorly regulated. The next time you're looking for a fun weekend activity, leave visiting the aquarium off of your list and head to the beach instead. You can help terrorize animals trapped in prisons by explaining to your friends and families why they should avoid aquariums too.